Ladies and gents, boys and girls, pronouns of your choosing, welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast. It is great to see you. It's great to have your ears with us once again. Hope you're well. Hope you've had a fantastic day. We have got a great episode for you. Today my guests are Craig Reeves and Laeticia Mace. They are from GODIVA, the world leader in fire pump design and manufacture. Now, as an operational firefighter, I have been using these pumps for around 13 years and they are considered the industry standard product across the UK. They're the largest global sales team in the industry, dedicated factory resources in North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Middle East, and even Asia Pacific. We share a whole wealth of knowledge today because aside from just the production and the manufacturing, they provide a whole host of hands-on training for all people that purchase these products all across the world. They've got super experienced individuals in the company and a true commitment to that servant leadership, listening to what the frontline firefighter needs on the job every single day and embedding that in their manufacturing, design and innovation processes when they think about what sort of pumps are coming out next and how can they best serve the people on the front line. But before we jump in there, let's hear from our Firefighters Podcast family. Now, when you're looking ahead to that night out or looking ahead to the weekend, you've been working hard, why not treat yourself to an amazing night or day out with Blue Light Ticket? Blue Light Tickets allows venues, sports teams, attractions, festivals and concerts to give free tickets to NHS and or emergency services staff to say thank you. Because there's so many massive venues, so many huge companies that really appreciate what everybody's been doing during the pandemic and especially the work we continue to do every single day out on the front line. So to fully leverage this, visit bluelighttickets.co.uk and find out more. You can register there. You can enter ticket ballots for free to attend events all over the UK. Before we get in there with today's guest, I want to put a massive shout out to our good friends over at William Wood Watches. Johnny and the team working hard, creating those luxury British watch brands from upcycled fire service equipment. Now, if you haven't seen who these guys are, you've got to get over to williamwoodwatches.com. These are a luxury watch brand with some fantastic history in the industry. Late grandfather of the owner, William Wood, was in the British Fire Service for 25 years. Now his grandson, Johnny, runs the company, celebrating these heroes, sharing that courage, that bravery and keeping the dream alive with the role models in the fire service all over the world. When you jump over to the website, you'll see their Valiant collection, the Bronze edition, the Chivalrous collection, and new this year out was the Triumph collection. So for more information, head over to williamwoodwatches.com and check out their beautiful collection right now. Also want to give a shout out to our media partners, the Emergency Services Times and the Emergency Services Show. We're also working in line with the Cheshire Fire Challenge and the British Firefighter Challenge. Competitions back on in the UK towards the end of 2021. All the details are in the notes for the show. And that's the names in the frames for today's episode, folks. So if you're sitting comfortably, buckle up for safety and I will see you on the other side. Craig Reeves, Laeticia Mace, welcome to the podcast. How are we doing, guys?
Yeah, morning, Pete.
Laeticia, good morning.
Good morning, Pete.
Good morning. So we first got in contact through the Emergency Services Show. So one of the media partners of the podcast Emergency Show, Emergency Services Times. And I was super excited as I looked at the list of exhibitors to hear that, of course, GODIVA once again were in there, in amongst it, sort of tip of the sword, trying to bring the industry forward. And I was really excited to get you guys on because I have been using pumps and various other resources probably since the beginning of my career, so 13 years ago. But for anybody that's unfamiliar, you guys and girls, mission statement is serving the firefighter community worldwide, which is a pretty big, hairy, audacious goal. I mean, Laeticia, how did GODIVA first get started, and where did that sort of mission statement, if you can even think back to it, where did it first really begin?
It's a long time ago. It's 83 years ago it started.
83 years? Wow. Crikey.
And it started at first, we were a company called Coventry Climax, and we were doing engines, and we partnered with a company who was doing pumps to create fire pumps in order to help to fight in the Second World War II.
Oh, really? So it started off originally with the motor companies, didn't it? It did racing vehicles and all that sort of stuff, because the company that we see today is kind of an amalgamation of a few different companies where they've gone out, seen some of the industry leaders and sort of onboarded all of that knowledge to become the sort of all-consuming performing company that we see today, haven't we?
Yes, it has. And now we've integrated the company IDEX and we do IDEX Fire and Safety. And through IDEX Fire and Safety, not only we offer pumps, vehicle-mounted pump and portable pumps, but our sister company can offer nozzles, monitors, and also rescue tools to look even better. Yeah.
So, Craig, we sort of spoken back there about the first portable pump that we saw in World War II. When did the company first realise that this was such a huge market that they wanted to get involved with?
Yeah, so I think World War II was obviously a time where everyone was all hands to the pump, but you know, these were needed and needed quickly. And so at the time, like Laeticia mentioned, we were part of a bigger company producing engines, and we had a skill set there, and we had the workshop facilities to produce thousands of these things to meet the war effort and the Blitz. So it was a relatively small part of the business at that point, but overnight it became a very large part of that facility.
So when we talked about sort of getting involved with IDEX and those sorts, so there's been, from my sort of research when I was looking into this, there really is a great group of, when I talk about value of association, people that were involved in this. So we had Class 1, the Akron Brass, the Akron Weldon, obviously Godiva, Hale, all of these companies that sort of came together. When I hear these words, I think of the Akron Marauder, and I think of, you know, the Saberjets and the Turbojets. That's where my mind goes, and it's lovely to see that these things all came from quite a similar origin. I think a big part, when I look at the website and when I've met members of the team before, is about this sort of product innovation and the idea that you've never quite arrived. You know, it's always reinterpreting the market, seeing what the needs of the operational firefighter is and how to serve it. So when we talk about innovation, Craig, what have some of the biggest, you think, game changers been in the company's history?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, there's a variety of brands within the IDEX Fire and Safety portfolio now, and there's hundreds of years collectively of experience and works and innovation. So I don't think we've got long enough need to go through them all, but touch on Godiva, for example. Over the 80 plus years that we've been producing firefighting pumps, one of the first ones that first innovations we did many moons ago, it's now really commonplace. So an aluminium fire pump, you know, these days that's you know, it's buster, if you like, but yeah, so we were the first to move towards a lighter, efficient and durable aluminium firefighting pump. So that was a key milestone. We then also worked with our engineering teams and our innovation teams to produce a multi-pressure pump, a multi-stage pump.
So when people are thinking about this on a fire station, we all see the big rear-mounted pumps, and then we've also got obviously the portable pumps. So most of our portable pumping units, or LPPs as they used to be referred to as the name might suggest, a smaller, lighter, portable version, but they tend to be a single-stage pump. Usually low pressure, feed in a lay flat hose of some form. But then, and I forget how long ago it was, I think it was certainly before my time, we started seeing the ability to transition between, so like a high pressure, rear mounted centrifugal pump that would have that sort of second stage of the pump that could feed the high pressure system. But you could do a quick transition between the two. So I bet this was a massive game changer for operational personnel. Rather than lugging around all of the big heavy lay flat hose, you could have a single pump that could do both high and low pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was the game changer, as you mentioned. So yeah, typically a low pressure line was needed, lay flat hose and large flows. As you expect at a fire scene, the ability to get a reel off, in this case of a high pressure hose reel, and get into the scenario quicker was a great game changer for the market in fighting fires. So a multi-pressure pump with the high pressure stage all on the same shaft in our world was a great innovation at that time. Now again, that's commonplace in the market around the world for multi-stage pumps.
It does, and we take it for granted, I think, so much, but trying to think back, and I don't want to try and question you too much, I'm not looking for any holes in your knowledge of the history of the company or anything like that, but we're effectively trying to take the fire engine, you know, a normal standard pumping unit, which is the vehicle itself, and trying to harness that power and put the inertia into the water. When did it first, do you think, become apparent that there was so much flexibility in our ability to manipulate and take water and you know, do this sort of pressure with it? Because back when firefighting existed, when the company started, we weren't able to achieve the sort of levels of pressure that we were now, and trying to fight fires at height was certainly difficult because we just couldn't produce the amount of pressure that we see in the reels these days. I mean, some of your vehicles, some of the appliances and the pumps and stuff like that can go to some crazy pressures.
Yeah, absolutely. So usually all these innovations come from the voice of the customer. You know, we're talking to the end users, the firefighters like yourself, Pete, challenges they're facing on a day-to-day, and some of them in the case of going from low to high pressure, the time it takes to get set up to engage with the fire scene. So as always with any innovation, we always need the end user, the firefighter support in understanding what their problems are today and try and come up with solutions for tomorrow. So it all drives around that.
I suppose firstly it's like you say how to best serve the firefighter, but Laeticia, also the environment that people operate in has really changed, and the hazards and the risks that the operational firefighter has to deal with on a day-to-day basis. When the company first moved to something like CAFS, I mean, people will look at the fire service now and think CAFS has always been there, it's always been a recognised resource in extinguishing media, but compressed air foam systems, if my memory serves correctly, your company was one of the true innovators in that, one of the ones that really led with it.
Yes, well, actually, CAPS was there for a long time, but what our company did is also optimize it, because it was such a faff, to
yeah.
put in place CAPS. But it was difficult.
Couldn't get it to work very fast, that's for sure. It was, and equally,
exactly.
when you started getting it to work, it just wasn't very good. It was rubbish foam, and we couldn't throw it very far. It wasn't a great system to start with, no.
No, it wasn't. But we could definitely see the potential it had and how efficient it could help the firefighters to be. And that's when we involved also electronics. And now we've got the system with one push of a button, depending on your fire, you've got the right cap that comes out immediately.
I think that's wonderful, and I think it takes a lot of human error out of it, because with the greatest respect to any firefighter listening, you can give them all the greatest systems in the world, but unless they're going to utilize the training, unless they're going to become proficient and professional in their role, things can still go wrong. How much do you as a company try and sort of strike that balance between a firefighter's or an operational personnel's comprehension from a sort of efficiency perspective, or from a hydrodynamics perspective, what the vehicle is actually trying to do? Because I feel like when I first learned, it was a lot of levers, it was a lot of listening to the appliance, it was a lot of feathering the accelerator and trying to achieve a prime with the pump. But now, as you've just rightly said, it's a case of push the button and the pump will do most of the work for you, almost 95% of the work for you. My only concern with that is, are people still getting the same level of professional development? So what was the desire to move to a more electronic system where it's very much a push button and the vehicle will achieve the rest of it for you? What were the drivers in terms of efficiency or userability for that?
Well, we listen to our end users. Also, we've got the chance on some of our business units to have volunteer firefighters who are working also for us.
Oh, wow.
So we've got this chance to hear them and listening, and we understand the amount of pressure. We can never understand completely, but we understand the amount of pressure that the firefighter comes to a scene and he's got so much to think about.
Yeah.
How can we simplify and make life easier for them in order to make, because there are so many life-changing decisions that they need to make. How can we make sure that we make it easy for them and they don't have to worry about the noise of the pump, or which level to talk, and really do what they are there to do in order to save lives and also save the properties.
Yeah, property and people. Because, no, you're right. There is, with all the greatest respect to firefighters of time gone past, the crews used to be a little bit bigger, so there'd be more people on the vehicles, and there would be somebody's sole job to be running that pump, and they would almost be a specialist skill set. They'd go through a hell of a lot of training for themselves, whereas now the firefighter is kind of, the ideal now is that they are the complete package. Certainly in the UK you'll only see 4 on each appliance, and the person that gets tasked at doing the pump operating is probably not the only thing they're being asked to do. They will have multiple other tasks that they need to be achieving, whether it's sending messages, getting an engine control set up or something like that. So no, I totally hear you. We need to give them the tools to be a lot more efficient in balancing all these other risks and not having to be there and give it all of their complete sole focus, I suppose.
Yeah. We do not want them to worry about the pump, and it will start every time, first time for us. The reliability part of the pump too is very important, and sometimes people can worry about electronics, But yeah, we making sure that every time it will start first time.
Yeah. Because Craig, we're talking about reliability and stuff like that. I think one of the things that impressed me, we go through a lot of testing in the fire service. We do our weeklies, our monthlies, our quarterlies and all that sort of stuff. But when I got looking into some of the testing processes that you guys do, they're quite substantial, from the static pressure test to the performance test. Talk to us, if you will, sort of expand on the testing process that a lot of these go through before they ever even hit the operational incident ground.
Yeah, absolutely. So our manufacturing facility for GODIVA is based in Warwick, right in the middle of England, in the UK, on the doorstep of ESS. So
Wow.
yeah, we do ESS. It's only a few miles down the road for us, so it's one of our home shows, if you like. But yeah, every single LPP, every single portable pump, every single vehicle-mounted pump, every single CAS system that is produced at GODIVA, and a lot of our assemblies as well for parts. But everything goes through our test facility located in Warwick. And we have a very unique test facility. We have deep wells to be able to produce any measure of lift that we need for any of these pumps, all the way up to 10, 15,000 litre pumps. So every pump goes through a hydrostatic test, as you mentioned. So we make sure that every single part and component, O-ring and everything is built up to a higher pressure than what we would ask a firefighter to use it, to make sure that pump is ready to go and durable and reliable. The pressures you mentioned, much higher pressures than we used to deal with. And once it's gone through a hydrostatic test, it goes into our dynamic test. So we're running the pump. We've essentially got mini vehicles in our test facility. We've got engines and motors to be able to drive these. And so we set them up as it would be in the back of a fire truck, and we put it through the paces of the standards that we meet. And currently the EN 1028 standards for the vehicle-mounted pumps. And we put it through its paces to make sure it's going to deliver the performance and the pressures the customers expect.
Without wanting to trip you up on any of the massive detail, just to give people an idea of this, I mean, we speak there about hydrostatic testing, and I know a lot of people that listen to the podcast are operational personnel, but for the person that's less familiar with it, this is obviously hydro being water, static. So similar to BA cylinders and stuff like that, you're either immersing it in something or artificially applying pressure to the internal pump casing. What sort of pressures are actually applied on some of these vehicles? Because they go to jobs where the demand of forcing it up a high-rise building, or feeding a firefighter that could be hundreds of meters away from them. What sort of pressures can these pumps achieve? Yeah,
absolutely. So the hydrostatic test, we fill it full of pressured water, and so we fill it to a certain pressure. Typically, a low pressure stage of the pump is going to be 17 bar. That's the operational max for any firefighter out there wanting to get water a long distance, or like you say, at height. And that's what we would say to you guys. We're going to be testing them to 23 plus bar. It depends on the model. But we're going to be testing it to higher than that 17 bar that we request. On the high pressure side, the pumps can deliver up to 55 bar. Now,
55? Wow.
Not many firefighters around the world are going to go up to those sort of pressures.
No, but, I mean, even just talking about the low pressure there, I think I was accidentally once holding onto a branch that had 11 bar delivered through it. And I'm a fit, healthy guy, but I'm 19 stone, and it very nearly took me off my feet. I wouldn't have wanted to be trying to hold on. I mean, it was obviously a mistake by the person putting it on, but I couldn't have held on to that for longer than a minute. But like you say, when you take out the pressure loss and frictional loss in terms of the hose, and then potentially going up 3, 4, 5 fleets, the old calculation being whatever it was, 0.1 bar per meter of height rise or something like that, we would lose that pressure. So for a high rise, I know in my brigade, we always try and lift at least 10 meters, so 10 bar. We want to deliver 10 bar to every part of that riser. But you're right, for all intents and purposes, that could mean you're giving 14, 15 bar out of your pump itself.
Yeah, correct, absolutely. The nozzle that you're going to be using at the end wants a certain pressure too, so they're going to be wanting to see in 5, 6, 7 bar at the nozzle. We need to counter in your pressure losses, whether that be over height or friction losses. So yes, the pump needs to work a little bit harder than what the pressure is required at the end to be able to fight the fire.
55 bar on a high pressure is pretty intense as well, though. I think for a lot of the testing that's been done, internal firefighting, where a hose reel is a more dynamic piece of extinguisher media, I think most of them operate around 31, 32. I think that's been studied to see the most efficient sort of gas cooling effect and all that sort of stuff. But I didn't know they could go all the way up to 55. That's pretty intense.
Yeah, it's like a lot of things, Pete. Like with your phone, you only use a certain amount of the phone's capabilities, don't you? A pump's a similar story, really.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing now in the market is, we used to have 19 mil hose reels, and you're used to be able to get a certain flow, and we a lot of pressure down a 19 mil. But certainly in the UK, we're starting to see 22 mil hose reels, we're getting more flow, we're having less friction loss. So we're able to get, 2 hose reels, we're able to get 230 litres out of each hose reel at the pressure to be able to fight the fire. So some brigades are up to the 40, 42 bar to deliver that.
Really?
Type of,
So I've dragged the 22 mils, and honestly, and again, I know I'm a fit, healthy guy or whatever, but you can't really tell the difference in terms of the labor required to move it, but you certainly get a tremendous amount more performance out of it. And again, it's all anti-kink and everything like that, so there's no concerns that we're getting to a diameter by which we're going to cause additional resistance by bending the hose or anything like that. That was always the concern. Anybody that thinks of a garden hose that's listening will think, oh, that's all well and good, what happens if X? But part of that, the factor of the hose reel, obviously everybody's familiar with it, we mitigate all of those risks and we're able to deliver a lot better flow in a more dynamic environment, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a change over the last few years, but 22 mil hose reel delivers only that small increase in diameter, delivers about 40+% more flow in the hose reel delivery. So a firefighter would much rather, it's the wet stuff that puts out the hot stuff. So the more you have at your hand, that thing when you're going into a contained fire, at least.
We can get as romantic and complicated as we like, but at the end of the day, we want to efficiently deliver the wet stuff to the hot stuff. Now, Laeticia, when we're thinking about some of the new, we've spoken several times about innovation and stuff like that, and some of the great groundbreaking ways that the companies move forward to better serve the person on the front line. What have been some of the most exciting stuff over the past 2 years? Because globally, in this pandemic, people have really struggled to continue to invest. I mean, innovation's an expensive thing to invest in. Just to keep the doors open for some companies is difficult, but to continue to innovate could be hard. So what's been some of the exciting things that have been going on in the company, and what are the sort of exciting things people have got to look forward to at the Emergency Services Show this year?
So we're looking at improving our CAS system. So we looked at the CAS system. And as we discussed previously, how can we make life easier, more peace of mind for the firefighters in the industry? And we improved our CAS system, and we've got our smart CAS Gen 2 and the MCP CAS Gen 2 that's coming up in June.
Fantastic. So what are some of the differences that we're going to see with that, Craig?
Yeah, so the CAS system, Gen 2, as Laeticia mentioned, so we're using a different style of compressor. So it delivers everything in terms of meeting all the regulations, delivering all the performance that we need, but it's quieter, first of all, and so that's obviously a benefit to the fire scene. It doesn't require certain other parts, so the combination of the components is different.
That is the annoyance with some foam systems. Some require an inline inducer, some require a different way that the foam is fed in, and it can be, I think that's one of the things that's a bit of a blocker and a bit of a concern, that a firefighter is going to miss one of these, because there's sometimes a few extra little additions or considerations that you need to put in place before you use CAFs. So this is a way to try and get rid of some of those and take the thinking out of it.
I'd say this is it's more of a continuous improvement. This one for the firefighter itself, hopefully they won't feel a change. It's going to be a more efficient system, less components, less maintenance, and more reliable. Ultimately that's the key driver of this one. And so the firefighter hopefully will seem very, very, very similar to what they had previously, but it'll be a much more efficient and reliable system.
Love it. Now,
for instance, we've got a belt.
Sorry, please go on.
So, for instance, we've got an automatic belt tensioner that will automatically put the right tensions on the belt, so you will have a high performance all the time compared to before you had to retension the belt and so on, and that was more maintenance. And also, if the maintenance wasn't done correctly at the right time, then you wouldn't have the same performance. So we're making sure that it's more automatic, and of course the spare parts behind that's quicker and easier to get.
Because like you say, hopefully the frontline personnel won't necessarily be involved in that sort of thing. But from an acquisition perspective, those people that are putting contracts out for tender, looking for the right vehicles, the right pumps moving forwards, maintenance and ongoing maintenance, preventative maintenance when it comes to vehicles is a big consideration, and something might be great on the front line, but if you have to nurse it all the way there and it takes constant attention from mechanics and other teams, then it's not really something that it's cost efficient for somebody to invest in, I suppose.
Yeah, and it will be already automatically there, so that it will always be running a little bit at the back. And as soon as you need it, you can just press the button to have it, and it will be there. Less steps. Get
I wanted to move into some of the more soft skills stuff that I see in the company, because there's reasons that You guys have been around for as long as you have, and a big part of this, I imagine, is the people that's in the company. Because at the end of the day, we can't get all these things done without people. We can have the best idea in the world, we can have the most innovative ideas and all that sort of stuff, but it's all got to come through people. So a big part of that for me is always leadership. And I wanted to ask yourself first, Craig, what are some of the aspects of leadership that you think are the best qualities for them to have?
I think that certainly within our business at GODIVA, but also within IDEX Fire and Safety, I think there has to be an element of an entrepreneur in you. We are businesses that we were manufacturing sites, and so we have the day-to-day to do, but to keep an 85 or 100 odd year old business like some of our partners are, have to have that entrepreneurial element within your leadership team to know what's coming around the corner and have the drive to be able to deliver that. So I'd say that's probably a key factor within our businesses.
The entrepreneurial itch is such an exciting thing, and it's kind of that internal rebel and knowing that, and I suppose it works hand in hand with innovation, that just because something hasn't been done yet, you've got to be audacious enough to start and then sort of belligerent enough to keep going and just keep pushing through until you get that solution. Laeticia, what about yourself? What are some of the non-negotiables, the best qualities of leadership?
Well, we are very key on servant leadership. So we want to listen from our customers and how can we help serve the employees to serve the customers, because at the end of the day, what matters is our customers. So it's all about how can we serve, and it's all about servant leadership for us.
Rather than just being the biggest and the best company out there and going, well, we don't need to listen to anybody. We can just keep going ahead with what we think is the best idea, and then not actually getting taken into consideration what do the people want that we're trying to serve. So it's like the bottom up perspective rather than just dictating to the market what you think is the best idea.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Love it. Craig, what is your proudest moment in this sector? What's your proudest professional moment in all the time that you've been with the company?
Proudest professional moment. I would say that my proudest professional moment is the day I ended up in moving from the office into the sales, but not because it was sales. Getting out there with customers, using our products, because of course we build them, we test them in the back of a fire truck with firefighters. Wet stuff on the hot stuff again. There's nothing more fun than creating our products with customers and hopefully finding solutions that they're looking to implement in their services. So the day they let me loose out into the world of fighters and fire services, I was glad of that day. And that was about 8 years ago, and I still enjoy it today. So.
Do you know what? You do hear a lot of that in this sector specifically because, and I've said it on a previous podcast, the beauty of the emergency services and the amazing companies and brands that are around it is you're not making straws for McDonald's. At the end of the day, you're being part of a system, of a sector. Not that there's anything wrong with making straws for McDonald's, but you're part of something that the end product, the end user, the thing they're going to use, the difference that can make. If you can make a pump that can get to work efficiently, can be reliable, it can tangibly save a life. That might be the big difference in somebody being there quick enough, somebody being there first, somebody being able to keep going long enough to really save somebody's life.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, that the pump is a very important part of the vehicle, but there's so many other factors that come included with it. You've got to be aware of, like you say, the firefighters' needs, the nozzles they're using, the lines they're using, the whole environment that they're in, wherever they might be. And so, yeah, really pulling that all together, working with the firefighters to understand what those needs are and delivering on them. So, like you say, ultimately be more efficient on the fire season, fire to save lives is. It's very rewarding as well.
It's a bit more of a motivational why, isn't it? It probably makes getting to work on a Monday morning a little bit easier if you get to rock up and spend half a day messing about with firefighters, learning about what's good, what's bad, what do they enjoy, what do they not enjoy. It must make that Monday morning feeling a little less heavy sometimes.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, the number of people in GODIVA and within IDEX that, we're getting paid to do our hobby. That's what we enjoy it that much that. And the fact that someone's paying us to be able to do this is it's fantastic, really. So
awesome. And Laeticia, obviously you've had a bit of a heads up now, so you know it's coming anyway. But what's been your proudest professional moment? And I promise she'll get the first question next time, Craig. Otherwise, it's going to be unfair.
Well, it's a difficult one because there are so many moments. I would say so with the COVID, because we talked about the COVID and you asked me about innovation. The company went send a message to say, what can we do to help? I asked all employees. And the company went up with an idea of developing a product called a Sanistreet. And it's a product to help to fight COVID. And it was developed within 2 months.
Wow.
Between the conception to the launch within 2 months. It's not working for the European market, it's working on other markets. But still, that was my proudest moment.
Yeah.
To see how reactive and entrepreneurial, even if we're part of a big group, we developed with different business units this product, and that was one of my proudest moments.
I think you're absolutely right. This pandemic has shown us all many, many, many things from a personal to a professional level, but it really has exposed those that have more of that infinite mindset rather than a finite mindset. You know, those people that wanted to be the biggest and the best in 2019 and didn't necessarily have that long vision for the company and really weren't looking after their staff necessarily or weren't being responsible financially, have been the ones that, as the water's been rising, they've vanished. They've struggled to keep their head above the water. And it's so inspiring to hear that through all of that. Of course, there'll have been conversations around budgets and finance and things like that. But one of the big things was, how can we help you? You know, it was still that servant leadership. It was still that giving aspect that came from, you know, a really scary time.
You get it right.
So, Laeticia, we're speaking here about personal and professional development. Now, a big part of what you've been speaking about is, you know, giving firefighters and the people that we serve the right resources to build their knowledge, build their ability to do their job in the best way. And I wanted to ask you guys personally, what have been some of the, whether it's a course or a book or a resource, something you've used for your own personal or professional development that you found really useful?
The first one is The 7 Habits by Stephen Covey. I don't know if you know that one.
Yes, Steve Covey, yeah.
Really like that. Really like the part of active listening, which is key for us. Not just to listen, you know, around us, but the market and so on. So yeah, definitely this one. And also on my professional side too, I've got the servant leadership course too was really helpful to understand where people stand and help them to move to the next step. So
I think that's a great way to always build rapport or build morale or anything like that. Build engagement in general with a company or with a person. If you are just doggedly going after somebody and trying to explain your point and trying to explain where you're coming from, there's a massive chasm. There's a big void between you and them. But if, you know, if the majority of your energy is going into seek to understand, you know, where is this person coming from? What's their needs? What does the perspective look like from their side? And I love what you said about active listening as well, because that for me is, whilst a lot of the time I'm not able to do the podcast in person, it's such a huge part. This is why I always love doing them on Zoom, because picking up on all of those non-verbal cues and the difference between listening to somebody and just waiting for your turn to speak. There's a very, very subtle but important difference. And I always say to people, it's hard to fake a podcast, and I almost think it's impossible, because you have to sincerely be interested in the material or in the person. You know, to sustain a conversation with people for an hour, you have to really care. So I love that it's still being practiced at high levels in companies as well. So Craig, hit us with it, brother. Personal or professional development, what have been some of the big levers that you've found help?
Yeah, so the teachers mentioned 7 Habits, the course, and IDEX used that with certainly the management teams and quite widely, and that was a really, really impactful one, I have to say. I guess professionally, one for me, and again, I don't think people have heard of it. It's an IDEX course, so it's called Talent Development Program. It's about 15 days long, not in one sitting, but you end up at Cambridge University and you graduate ultimately. And I found it really, really impactful to me, my career. The team that worked for me, it really covers a lot of areas, and it was a fantastic course. And IDEX has done a great job in putting that together and being able to deliver it to people that are on their career path. So I think, to give you a little flavour, because you won't have heard of the course, I'm sure. I likened it a little bit to, if you ever watched The Apprentice, you have different modules and you have to go off in different teams, and you have to ultimately so it's an element of that, but there's a lot of people in there that are different skill sets, different backgrounds, all trying to drive to get to, I don't know, whatever the task might be. And so it's fun at the same time, but yeah, really, really impactful for my career personally.
Encouraging everybody to flex their style, and, you know, they've got all those things going in there, motivation to conflict management, to, you know, trying to get everybody pulling in the same direction. It's great to see that, though, because they're quite expensive things to do sometimes. And, you know, I know certainly the fire service and police and stuff like that do spend a lot of time investing in the development of their staff. And some people think it's just a luxury they have because, you know, we're just paying the taxpayers' money. But in external businesses, you know, in private business, they're spending their own money. And, you know, I always say to people, you're better off developing somebody even if they leave, because if you develop them and they leave, it's better than not developing them and they stay. At the end of the day, you've got to be putting that time and that money into people. Now, a lot of what we've been speaking about through this pandemic period, and I've spoken to so many people who have found this sort of whole craziness of the last 2 years very inconvenient at times, really pressure, but it's also given us an opportunity to do a lot of reflection, you know, think about our own habits and behaviors and whether how we interact with other people or how we're looking after ourselves physically and mentally. So, Laeticia, in this sort of period that we've gone through, I wanted to ask if there's any habits that you've sort of picked up, or maybe some you've not picked up but you've doubled down on in the last 18 months that have helped you most personally, whether that's from a self-care perspective or from something you've done for yourself or for other people. What's a habit that you've developed or worked on?
Well, it's very personal, but one of the things I used to do was, because now I'm working remotely, and one of the things I used to do was to work from my desk during lunchtime. And now I took the habit to take this half hour for me to go downstairs and have a break, a real break for half an hour. And it makes a whole world of difference, actually.
Yeah.
I'm more ready mentally to go back to work and more focused.
It is a tough one because when you've got so much to do, and I'm sure you've got a to-do list that's endless almost, having the self-awareness to know that I'm not effective anymore. Do you know what I mean? I'm becoming bogged down because I've been staring at a screen for 4 or 5 hours and I'm not effective anymore. You know, having that self-awareness to stop and then sort of replenish yourself, whether it's go outside, whether it's do something physically, play with the dog, go and do a bit of Scrabble, read a bit of a book, eat something you enjoy. I totally agree with you. I've got a little timer next to my desk and it runs for 30 minutes. And I tell myself that every 30 minutes, it's an interval timer. So it does 30 minutes and then it has 10-minute break. And it gives me a few things. So when it goes off, every time it goes off, I'll either do something physically. So I'll go into the gym that's here at the house, or I'll do something on the floor, or I'll go and play with the dog, or I'll go and get a drink. And then I know I've got those 10 minutes of replenishment, you know, filling my own cup back up. But on the flip side as well, it also gives me a bit of accountability because I know I've only got 27 minutes left, or 10 minutes, or 9 minutes to finish this thing that I'm on. Because otherwise you have that whole mushroom effect where the task just grows into the amount of time that you give it. You're like, oh, well, I've got 3 hours to do this, and it takes you 3 hours. When realistically, if you only had half an hour, you might have been able to get it done. So, Craig, habits. What habits have you worked on or started or developed since all of this started?
Yeah, so the pandemic and lockdowns have shown me that I am a very active person, and I was a very active person before, but mainly doing certain sports. And I've not been able to do those sports throughout this last year. So I've had to really engage myself with jogging, and I don't like jogging. On a treadmill or right on the road, it's something that I haven't had to do. But my weighing scales told me in March through to June that you need to do something. Your age is not where it used to be. You can't get away with it anymore. And so yeah, with the help of my wife, we've been doing lots of jogging, and I now enjoy it. So I certainly say that still, but no, I do enjoy it. It gives me purpose. It gets me out with fresh air. And so, yeah, hopefully that will help me as I move out of my sports as I get older.
Super important, super important. We've been so big on mental health these days, and so we should be, because I think it's an area that's been neglected professionally and personally for so many years. But I'm just always conscious that I don't want us to take the finger off the pulse of physical and mental well-being. You know, it is a balance. Neither one can exist without the other. So I totally agree with you, and I think it's super important. Even for mental conditioning, going out jogging sucks. You know what I mean? It's hard. It can be really difficult. And I never feel motivated necessarily these days to go out and go into the gym or anything like that. But I know when I'm 5 or 10 minutes into it, as I'm sure maybe you feel when you're half a mile in, all of a sudden motivation joins you and you start to connect with your why, which is, you know, Craig, am a fit and healthy guy. Or, you know, for myself, I see myself as a fit and healthy person. I'm a firefighter, for goodness sake. So if that identity is true to me, then, you know, it gives you a little bit more of a why to go out there and actually get it done. Final one is going to be about non-negotiable behaviors. What in your life is a non-negotiable with people you work with personally or professionally? What's a characteristic or a non-negotiable value that they must adhere to in order to be part of your world? So, Laeticia, to be able to operate at this level and for the company to have been going on this long, there has to be some non-negotiables, things the company will and won't do. But I wanted to ask you personally, in your own inner circle, what are some non-negotiable behaviors that you feel people must, uphold or people must value to be able to be part of your world?
I would say for me, I need to be able to trust them. If they do any behavior that would break this trust, that is non-negotiable. I can't say it.
We've got it. So trust. Yeah, trust, absolutely.
Yes,
people think trust has to be earned. I don't believe that one. I give trust to everybody. I trust you until you give me a reason not to, which has got me burnt at times, and I try not to do it to too much of a financial commitment now if I can be smart enough to do it in the moment, but it is definitely a big non-negotiable. Craig, non-negotiable. Hit us, brother.
The word that sort of came to my mind was you've got to be engaged, but I guess the word I'm looking for really is passion. I think, for us as a business, the market that we're in, the communities that we serve, you've got to have a passion for this industry, really. And I see that everywhere I go, and I see it as really important within our business to have that passion to drive forward and to listen and provide the solutions that we know we can provide. So passion would be what I look for.
I totally agree with you. I think it's something we mentioned earlier about feeling a little bit romantic about the sector. You've got to be able to stand back at the end of it and see that pump mounted on a vehicle and go, that looks cool, doesn't it? And just be able to say that and go, oh, so we were part of that. That is pretty cool. And I don't think, with the greatest of respect to a lot of other industries, that's not necessarily commonplace in some places. Some people enjoy, this quarter we made a lot of money, or this year we were the biggest and the best, or whatever. But being able to look at the end product as part of an emergency services brand or company really, again, is that USP where you can look and go, God, that's awesome. And you've been part of that process.
Yeah, absolutely, Pete. I think from whether it's me out on the road, I get to see a lot of fire trucks, fire pumps, firefighters, but even the people in our accounts team, the people in our stores, we know that whenever they see a fire truck, they're always having a peek around the back, trying to see what pump's in there, and they're always bringing it back. So yeah. I
will say, whenever we do community safety events and stuff like that, that's always the wow moment. When you walk the children, or you walk even the dads or anything like that, they'll walk round to the back of the fire engine and you open up the doors and they go, whoa, that is big, that is impressive. And then you talk about some of the figures, you're like, oh right, this is a 2010 and 2,000 litres and this and that. And even the dads, we've all still got that kid-like aspect of us where we'll ask a question, what sort of pressure can that go to then? How much water can that deliver? And it's a really impressive kit.
Certainly is.
Perfect. Craig, Laeticia, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy days. We've been speaking so much about efficiency and about utilizing time and resources in the right way. I sincerely hope you found our conversation today a useful and efficient way of spending part of your afternoon. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you very much, Pete.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you. It's been great.
I will see you guys real soon. All right. Take care.
Right. Take care, Pete.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, there we have it, boys and girls. That was my conversation with Craig and Laeticia. Some awesome takeaways. I learned so much about the company and its whole background, how it first got started in World War II, a specific request from the royal family themselves, almost a call to arms to serve our frontline workers. Since then, the company's gone from strength to strength through that process of personal, professional development and true innovation. Chances are, if you're an operational firefighter yourself, or if you've ever seen a fire engine driving down the road, it has got a GODIVA pump right there on the back of it. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. I hope you took a lot away from it. If you want to learn more about the company, the contact details are in the notes below, or simply head over to godiva.co.uk, where you can see some of the latest equipment on the absolute front line of industry excellence. A huge thanks to Craig and Laeticia once more for coming on the podcast, and a massive thanks to you. Yes, you, once again, the listener, taking time out of your busy life. At the end of the day, if nobody's listening, then what are we doing all this for? The podcast is growing day by day in over 60 countries now, and that is down to you. So if you've taken value from today's episode, or you've taken value from any of the episodes, don't be selfish. Share it with somebody. Copy this link, share it to a friend. Take a look for us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and take a look at what other episodes are out there. What other incredible people, brands, companies, ambassadors have been on the podcast. There are some absolutely awesome nuggets of information to be drawn from some of the episodes. And it's through your ongoing listening that inspires inspires me and inspires the rest of the team to keep hunting these people out. So once again, I thank you for being here and sharing this moment in time with us. So until next time, look after each other, look after yourself, support your emergency services, stay happy, stay healthy, stay hungry, and I cannot wait to see you again real soon, right here on the Firefighters Podcast.